both John Cornyn and Ken Paxton in Texas's U.S. Senate race. We'll discuss this and more of today's top headlines. I'm Celeste Schurman.
And I'm Ernie Manouse. We'll also discuss expanding child care in Harris County with Ann Sung, Chief Policy and Innovation Officer for Harris County Precinct 4 Commissioner Leslie Briones.
Plus, local media personality Tessa Barrera, formerly of Houston Life on KPRC, will join us to share what she's been up to since leaving local TV.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live over on YouTube. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Supreme Court finds Louisiana's congressional maps amount to an, quote, unconstitutional racial gerrymander. The justices voted 6-3 to strike down a map that created a second majority black congressional district in the state. The High Court's decision was along partisan lines. The Iran war is costing U.S. taxpayers $25 billion, according to the Pentagon's chief financial official. On Capitol Hill today, Acting Comptroller Jay Hurst offered the first public cost estimate for the conflict. Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kaner, also appearing before lawmakers to talk about a Pentagon budget request for $1.45 trillion. Hegseth sparred with Democratic Representative Adam Smith, the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee.
They had not given up their nuclear ambitions, and they had a conventional shield of thousands of missiles.
So Operation Midnight Hammer accomplished nothing of substance. It left us at exactly the same place we were before.
President Trump's pick to lead the Federal Reserve has won the backing of a key Senate committee. NPR's Scott Horsley reports Kevin Warsh is on track to take the helm of the central bank next month.
The Senate Banking Committee voted along party lines to endorse Kevin Warsh to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. That sets the stage for a confirmation vote by the full Senate. Republican Senator Tom Tillis dropped his opposition to the vote after the Justice Department agreed to end its criminal investigation of the Fed, which was widely seen as part of a pressure campaign by the White House for lower interest rates. The top Democrat on the committee, Elizabeth Warren, was not convinced.
No one is fooled. Trump is still going after control of the Fed, and he is keeping the threat of bogus criminal charges alive until he gets what he wants.
Trump's been demanding lower interest rates, but the central bank's expected to hold its benchmark rate steady today. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Former FBI Director James Comey is expected to turn himself into authorities in Virginia a day after a grand jury indicted him for allegedly threatening the president. NPR's Carrie Johnson has more.
Comey says he's innocent and he has confidence in the judicial system. He's facing 2 felony charges related to an image he posted to Instagram last year while walking along the beach. The photo showed shells in the shape of the number 8647. 86 is slang for get rid of, and 47 is, by some accounts, a reference to Donald Trump as the 47th president. Comey quickly deleted the post and apologized, saying he didn't know it could be connected to violence, but the Justice Department sought to indict him anyway. The president's been calling on his DOJ to prosecute Comey and other prominent critics. A judge dismissed a separate case against the former FBI director last year. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
It's NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. A Harris County Precinct 3 deputy is facing a public intoxication charge and was arrested earlier this week. Deputy Julio Valadez was taken into custody on Monday in Seguin, Texas, according to the Guadalupe County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office says that he was a passenger in a car involved in a hit and run and identified himself as an officer to the Guadalupe County Sheriff's Officer responding to the situation. Police say Valdez was armed and smelled of alcohol. ABC 13 reports he faces public intoxication charges and a charge of unlawfully carrying a weapon, and he's been placed on administrative leave at the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Meanwhile, major oil companies are facing a supply shortfall by 2050 and are ramping up exploration of new oil fields. That's according to a recent report from data analytics company Wood Mackenzie. News 88.7's Natalie Weber tells us more about what that means for Houston.
Houston is home to many of the world's major oil exploration companies. That's according to Andrew Latham, a senior vice president with Wood Mackenzie.
If there's one city in the world that is the center of the global exploration industry, it is Houston. And in part that's because ExxonMobil has its global exploration team there, so does Chevron, so does ConocoPhillips.
Latham says many of these large companies are ramping up their exploration of new drilling sites. But he says Houston may not see a significant increase in jobs.
There's only so many experienced geologists that these companies employ. They're increasingly making sure that those geologists are working on big prospects.
I'm Natalie Weber, News 88.7.
In sports, the Astros lost again, this time to the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore beat Houston 5-3 in what was the first of a 3-game series. The Astros remain in last place right now in the division. Meanwhile, the Rockets are going to try and avoid elimination tonight in the NBA playoffs on the road against the Lakers. They're down 3-1 in the series. Star player Kevin Durant is not playing tonight with an injury. Tip-off is set for 9 p.m. I'm Matt Harrop, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive, with small business insurance for protecting a variety of business types with multiple coverage options, designed to fit business owners' needs. More about small business insurance is at progressivecommercial.com.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now your hosts for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse and Celeste Díaz Schurman.
And hello, Houston.
Hello, Houston.
So we are back with you today with a very full show, a lot of important things, a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. But yesterday we were talking a bit about the visit from the king and queen, which is kind of funny to say it that way in today's day and age.
Right.
It seems antiquated to us that there is a king and queen really ruling on this globe. There's a bunch of them around the globe. But anyway, you got some feedback.
Yes. So we got a email, or I think this was actually a voicemail, and I'm not going to say this person's name, but he basically said, your reporting of King Charles' speech this morning, you got about half or less right. You mentioned nothing about the King of England, talking about the importance of checks and balances, and against the chief executive, you left out his talking about the existential threat of global warming, which I think was very, and that's what the email continued to go on and say. But
I was going to say, but you have to remember when we went on the air. This is a little hindsight. We had not heard the King's speech. Oh, wasn't that King's Speech, the movie? We had not heard the King's speech yet at that point, and I do believe he was in the process of addressing when we were on air. And he had been at the White House and had his reception there and had then gone to Congress. And so you may have heard us in a little later in it. But yes, and also omission isn't getting it wrong. We just hadn't gotten to it.
Right.
We talked about some bits of it.
And the reason I
wanted, you're right. Yes, it's important what he said.
To mention this. And then he goes on to say, now the King of England was telling the United States Congress that there needed to be checks and balances against the chief executive. And both parties gave him a standing ovation. And I thought that was very interesting. As I was reading this email, number one, I thought how intelligent and how almost interesting our community that we have grown here on Hello Houston is to send he was basically saying like, hey, he was a part of the conversation. You guys got it. You guys are halfway there. And I agreed with him. I was like, yeah. And to Ernie to give it context. But I thought this was very right. And I think that was a very poignant moment that we had the King of England talking to the United States of America saying there needs to be checks and balances. The irony.
Right. And I will say, when I got home yesterday, what did I have on? I was watching all the recaps of his speech and what was said and all. But then, of course, the Comey information, the Comey news also got into the news cycle. And so it was like what would have or usually would have been a day where we would have only seen what the king had said. And it was very interesting because the king is not supposed to be political. He is soft politics, as they call it. He's here to build relations, to talk of the people and not to take sides on things. And for a reigning English monarch to have been as pointed as he was in his comments is a very unique thing, and was interesting to see. And that, what do you do as a member of Congress when a reigning monarch says those things and half start to stand up and applaud? Well, there's nothing wrong with applauding to what we are built on. But boy, oh boy, have things changed in our country, how that becomes political.
But I think the point is that everyone stood up. I mean, he got a complete standing ovation.
What I had heard, and I don't know, I obviously wasn't there, the Democrats stood up first and then Republicans stood up too. It was kind of like, how do we stay seated? There's nothing that you can object to in what's being said, but politically, do we stand? And I don't know. I haven't watched that much of it yet, but I'm kind of obsessed.
And I think that that's where some of that tension lies, right, Ernie, is that you have people looking around the room. We have our elected officials who are public servants looking around the room saying, do I stand up or do I not stand up? Yes, absolutely. If there is something that we can all get behind, there are, I like to say, common sense. We need to have common sense.
Yeah. And we're going to be talking about that in our headlines, and that's coming up. Also, understanding the landscape seems to be changing around us in both directions. We'll be covering stories on that today. We're also going to take a look at, we were talking yesterday about childcare and the high cost and all that. We're going to have more. We're going to continue that conversation as we look at what's happening in expanding childcare in Harris County with members from Leslie Briones' team are going to be here with us. And so we'll be talking about that coming up. Tessa Barrera is going to be here.
Yeah. Tessa and I know each other. Just, we've been to multiple events together. And she's from South Texas. Tessa Barrera is from Corpus Christi. And so I don't know if I would consider Corpus to be the Valley, but Valley girls South Texas girls like to stick together. And so her and I were chatting, and I said, Tessa, why don't you come on? And so we're going to hear about what's next for her and, just kind of what's going on.
And also a little later in the show, the Health Museum's got a teen summit going on, and it's really kind of fascinating. So they'll be telling us what teens can do this summer to help engage them in medical science and the issues that face us today when it comes to that area.
That's right.
A lot going on. But what is also going on are the headlines every day. And while she still can, Celeste, take us into the headlines.
I will always be able to. Democratic State Representative James Talarico is narrowly leading both potential Republican opponents in a new Texas Senate poll, though the race remains within the margin of error. The survey conducted earlier this month shows Talarico ahead of Senator John Cornyn, 44 to 41%, and leading Attorney General Ken Paxton, 46 to 41. Despite the numbers, Democrats haven't won a statewide race in Texas in more than 30 years, and recent polling has often overstated their chances. Still, the party sees a possible opening, pointing to declining approval ratings for President Donald Trump and voter concerns over the economy and immigration. Cornyn and Paxton now face off in a May 26 runoff, with the winner set to challenge Talarico in November. We want to hear your thoughts. Can Talarico win? And could this be Texas's time to turn blue? 713-440-8870.
Okay, surprise. I've got thoughts on this. Just a little background, just to remind everyone, I came out of NBC election and news polling. So I'm always fascinated by polls. That's where I cut my teeth in broadcasting many, many years ago. And I get bothered by polls like this because I worry the impact it has on the electorate. People talked about this during the Trump-Clinton run back in 2016, in that once you start presupposing a winner, how does it influence how you vote? So maybe when we do the polling and we see Talarico is pulling ahead, well, then does that light a fire under Republicans to say, well, we've got to get more people out there? Or does it cool the flame under the Democrats who say, well, it looks like it's a shoo-in, I don't need to vote? So I don't always like the constant reporting of polls, but I think they're important to gauge things. Now, the other side of all of that is what's interesting when you ask the real question you asked there about, is this a chance to turn the state blue? What people have to realize in a state senator race, like with a governor race, you're not beholden to districts. So it's not like for president or House of Representatives where they're, you could say, gerrymandering districts to increase the Republican voice or the Democratic voice and how people vote. This is a statewide popularity contest. So for state senator, every vote matters the same. You're not winning in a district and then winning. It's just a totality of votes. So could it work here this time? Yes, is what I say.
I'm not completely convinced, Ernie. I am not convinced that Texas will ever turn blue. However, I do think what we are seeing is more voters are responding to candidates that they see are practical and very solution-based. Mm-hmm. I do think that extremes are starting to feel a little bit more riskier and dangerous, and I think that that is coming out of this administration. What we saw with this extreme immigration policy coming down and how it is affecting communities in their own backyard. When you start broad stroking and saying illegal immigrants are going to be out of this country, and all of a sudden people are seeing community members that are revered and loved start to be questioned. And I do think it's instead of a red versus blue, I think more voters, again, are responding to candidates that seem a little bit more balanced. And the middle may not be loud, but I do think that they are becoming more influential in races.
I agree to everything you said there, but I still think for the first time in a long time, we could see a Democratic senator.
Okay. Beto O'Rourke.
Right. But Beto didn't have these kind of polling numbers going in. The big thing with Beto that they kept talking about was he was neck and neck. He kept being neck and neck. Here we're seeing win and win in both columns. Now, granted, we got a long time till we get to these elections. And trust me, it's going to feel like a long time because a lot's going to happen. And even just what happened over the weekend with the attempted assassination attempt, you look at how it changes people's views of how they see people. And we are so swayed by current events and what happens. People who railed against the president suddenly have a gentleness toward him in some circles because of this attempt at his life. Things like that sway. And so you never know what's going to happen in current events and news that could alter this. But at this point, with the dissatisfaction across the board with all elected officials, I think Talarico speaks with a different voice.
I would say that I would agree in that in a tight race like this, candidates such as Talarico will definitely appeal to both parties.
Right.
And I do think that this is unique, also given the reputation that Ken Paxton has. Given his, controversies. So I think we're in a unique position. Mm-hmm. And I think that if Talarico can continue to move forward with the mission, I think he has a chance. Turning Texas blue to me sounds not going to happen.
And I wouldn't go so far as to say turning Texas blue.
Yeah, that's
could
just,
a Democrat
to me,
win a Senate seat? Yes. Will the state turn blue? Highly unlikely. But that's because of a myriad of reasons. It is the districting and the way they're redistricting. We're going to be talking about that in the next hour because the Supreme Court decision just came down today, not about Texas, but it could impact redistricting across the board. But it's the whole idea that we have a lot of conservative districts that are going to, and I think the Republican Party is trying to now find its identity past Donald Trump. What's it going to mean when his reign is done?
Correct.
And they're trying to find what is the next step, and it may not be MAGA. And so that's going to maybe soften where we are. Cornyn already tried to begin walking that path. And it depends. If he's defeated in the primary, does that then change the way the Republican Party looks to the future? It's going to be fascinating to watch. I'm very excited.
I do think that Talarico has the appeal to speak more to Republicans than possibly any other Democratic candidate that we've had in a very long time.
It's interesting when you're in the primaries, and we've talked about this before, you have to get to the primary voters and you have to go. So you go to the ends because that's where the primary voters tend to live, the extremes in the party. And then the hard part is coming back to the middle to find that middle road. Talarico seemed to get the Democrats being middle. He wasn't going far to the edges. And that's going to be a little different because usually they have to redefine themselves. What does Cornyn or Paxton do now once one of them gets the nomination to move to the middle? They really can't. They've boxed themselves in a bit.
And I would go as far to say that I'm not totally convinced that Cornyn's going to win between polls. I think that Paxton could definitely pull through. You know, there are a lot of Texans who see the things that, you know, some of the controversies and legality issues that Paxton has had, and they say that's his personal life. That doesn't deal with anything. We think he's a strong candidate because he fights for Texans, and I could see that he potentially could also be the candidate going against Talarico. If that is the case, I do think Talarico has a chance.
713-440-8870. Love to know what you think about all of this. We've gotten a lot of response over on YouTube. Midtown Mars says, so many Republicans have finally realized that there are 3 parties right now, and we need to get back to 2-party system. 1 party is the Republican Party, 2 is the Democratic Party, and 3rd is the Trump Party. Interesting point. Noah writes, Cornyn or Talarico, never Paxton. Earl Grey T-Cat, Talarico has my vote, and I think he will be an excellent fit for Texas, a man of the people for the people. And Sean writes in, Cornyn is spending $100 million and may still lose. Interesting thoughts. I do want to go back, though, to a comment someone made a few minutes ago that I love. It's from our good friend Alex Garza. She writes, now that it's lunchtime, let's not forget about the true royalty, Burger King and Dairy Queen. 2 of my favorite reigning royals. I won't get that wrong.
Here, Alex.
Yeah, it's interesting, though. Interesting to see how all of this is going to play out and what's going to happen. And I'm still fascinated by the maps and what that's going to mean. Our maps are pretty much set for this cycle unless something major happens. And so these are the districts we're in right now. And it looks like we will be until 2030. But what is happening with redistricting across the nation? Fascinating story to follow. Okay, really quickly, speaking of kings and queens, how about the king of pop? Michael Jackson. His movie Michael has arrived in theaters and is an instant sensation. $97 million domestically and $217 million globally in its first weekend of release.
You know, Ernie, what do you think it is about Michael Jackson that I feel like for as long as I have been able to remember, his name has always pulled in these type of numbers?
It is a fan base that will not be swayed. And that's kind of fascinating. And it lives on. It's kind of like with Elvis also. There's a group of people. There are certain iconic musical figures that define a generation.
Yes, but Michael Jackson has multiple people have come. I mean, he was, I think he was a pedophile.
Hasn't been proven.
But multiple victims have come out to say, allegedly.
And others. It is fascinating. You know, like that big...
Jim's like, rap. Celeste used the word pedophile.
Yes. It is. They are serious allegations that have brought against him over a period of time. It's interesting that the movie stops right before any of those kind of issues became paramount in his career. And so they talk about there being a second film to this, a sequel to this of the next set of years. I don't know how they would handle this that.
Maybe I'm at the generation where I remember Michael Jackson. I remember when he died. I think, though, I also was old enough when all of the allegations started coming out, and that's what I really remember and know. And they're still coming out.
Right. One family that was very close with Michael Jackson for a very long time and defended him and were very close. It was the manager or concierge of a hotel that Michael used to stay at in New York, and Michael became very close with the family and the children. They all came and they defended him for years and years and years. And when that documentary came out a few years back on HBO, finally those children now have started to come forward. They're full adults now, and said that they too were abused by Michael. The Michael Jackson estate says it's a money grab now. After all these years of defending Michael, suddenly they weren't getting paid off by the Jackson estate anymore and have changed their story. Interesting. People wonder.
All 4 of them, right?
All 4 of the kids.
It was 3 sons and 1 daughter.
Right. Have all said that they were
And I
abused.
recently read, that's exactly what I'm going to.
But 4 years, those exact slate of children all said, and young adults all said that nothing happened.
Right. And now they're full-grown adults.
And now they're saying.
And they're saying this happened.
Right. Well.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Okay, and a weird fact, Janet Jackson's not mentioned at all or seen in the movie.
I heard an interesting story of why
Tell me.
not. I'll tell you later. We're being wrapped.
Coming up.
Dangle that for you.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk about expanding child care in Harris County with Ann Sung, the Chief Policy and Innovation Officer for Commissioner Leslie Briones, Harris County Precinct 4. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Meet Tio Choco. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. This is his story. Visit ridemetro.org/Choco to find out where is Choco.
We can definitely tell it's harder to breathe here. We're all wearing masks.
I'm Scott Detrow, on the ground reporting on Indonesia's nickel boom on All Things Considered from NPR News.
You can hear that today at 3 o'clock.
Houston Matters is your essential daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston.
These counties have been growing a lot.
I think what has been holding us back is the fact that for 2 legislative sessions, schools didn't really get an increase in funding.
If the storm surge comes up the ship channel, that's a nightmare.
There's an acceptance at cons that you don't get elsewhere. No judgment, and it's beautiful.
I'm Craig Cohen. Join us for the next Houston Matters, weekday mornings at 9 here on News 88.7.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now. Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from attorney mediator Ron Bankston, providing in-person, video conference, and hybrid mediation and arbitration services. More information is available at ronbankston.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Houston Parks Board, celebrating 50 years of expanding, improving, and protecting parks and green space in the Houston region. Learn more at houstonparksboard.org.
Support comes from PhotoFest Biennial 2026, highlighting 4 decades of photographic work by more than 500 artists from over 50 countries. On view at Sawyer Yards through May 10th. Details at photofest.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manouse and Celeste Díaz Schurman.
Child care access remains a major challenge for thousands of families right here in Harris County, a topic we discussed on yesterday's show with nonprofit Children at Risk. In many instances, working parents face long wait lists for subsidies and limited affordable options. Now, county leaders are taking a new approach, launching a business accelerator initiative designed to help child care providers expand, improve quality, and serve more families. To tell us more, we're joined by Ann Sung, the Chief Policy and Innovation Officer for Commissioner Leslie Briones in Precinct 4. And welcome to Hello Houston.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
And if you would like to join the conversation, if you have a question about this for Ann, you can call or text 713-440-8870.
Before we get into the business accelerator and all of that and what's going on there, help me and help our audience when we use words like a crisis around child care. What are we talking about?
Well, the numbers don't add up for Harris County families. I'm a mom myself, like Commissioner Briones, and I think when parents have a child, they get sticker shock. They don't realize that they'll be paying more than an average in-state college tuition for child care. There's an issue of quality as well, of the Texas Rising Star certified child care providers in Harris County. Only about a quarter are at the highest TRS-4 rating. And this is a challenge for families and for workers as well. 1 in 4 Harris County parents drop out of work or education in order to make child care work.
So, and you know, we continue. Yesterday we were talking to Children at Risk, and they have their new report out. Here you're telling us these numbers. So my question then becomes, what can our elected officials and policy makers actually do to find solutions to improve the lives of people in Harris County?
Well, as a mom and former teacher, Commissioner Briones cares deeply about delivering opportunity for Harris County residents. And in this area, in early child care, she, along with the leadership of Commissioner Adrian Garcia, convened a coalition across Harris County with business leaders, with nonprofit leaders, government, academia, and philanthropy to understand the system, understand the challenges, and figure out what we could do together. And so we have delivered in April kind of a first installment on that work. So delivering progress through taking action here locally in Harris County. And so there's that business accelerator that you mentioned. There's simplifying business permitting requirements here locally in Harris County, leveraging what we can do through Harris County to educate families, and then finally bringing together a unified voice to advocate at the state level. This is a complex challenge that will require action locally and at the state level.
So talk to us a little bit about the business accelerator approach, and how is that different, and how does it work?
Yeah, so over the last 5 years, a number of early child care providers in Harris County have gone out of business, especially with COVID. That was a challenging time for providers. It's a difficult work. Many providers go into the business because they love kids and they want to start a business, but it is complex to get licensed, to get permits for your building, and the margins can be pretty slim as well. And so what we hope to do through this business accelerator, which is new, this is the first time that Harris County is taking on this work, is to help educate businesses on how do you navigate those requirements, but also how do you just run a business? How do you keep books? That is often a challenge for providers. And then how do you navigate state regulations? How do you get Texas Rising Star certified? You can receive child care subsidies, which will allow low-income families to receive services at your business. And then finally, how do you improve quality? There's so much brain development that happens. The majority of it happens between ages 0 and 5, and really helping these providers learn how to support kids' learning and growth in these early years is incredibly important as well.
Let me ask this, and it sounds kind of a harsh way to ask this question. I don't mean that. It's just kind of more for grounds for discussion. And that would be, aren't we working in a broken system? And so trying to find fixes in a broken system doesn't fix the system. Isn't the problem much bigger? And it's what we pay people, how we look at work in today's society. If incomes are low, you have to have two parents working if you're fortunate enough to have a two-parent system. So couldn't we be examining, or shouldn't we be examining this issue at that top level? Don't we have to redevelop what it means to be working in today's culture and having children, as opposed to trying to fix what's happening at the daycare level of it all? Thoughts on that? Not that you shouldn't be doing the work you're doing, but that discussion, how do we have that one?
I think that's very fair. I think we need to be addressing the system in which our families live and work. It's incredibly urgent for parents who have kids to be able to address the childcare needs that they have, and it's important for businesses too today to find workers. And so, absolutely, this is situated in a complex system with challenges. But I think we've got great momentum in this area. We see at the state level, the governor has convened a task force on early childhood education and care. We've seen a quad agency review as well, looking at how this complex system with many different stakeholders can be more streamlined and come together and work for early child care providers. So I think there's momentum to kind of tackle both smaller challenges and bigger challenges.
Did we learn anything from COVID in this realm? And by that I mean, once we all took work home, it changed how we interacted with our families when we were available, weren't. Were there lessons we could glean from that for understanding how we should structure work in this country now, and understanding there are ways you can be at home, you can work, but you can be there for your children? Or is that not finding its way to be real?
Well, I think a lot of parents learned during COVID how hard it is to manage childcare and work. And I think we learned how important it is to have professionals that know how to do that work and to care for our kids.
Because we all became child care. We all, I mean, my kids, I did preschool virtually with my daughter when COVID happened in 2020. So I definitely think it opened the eyes of parents, especially working parents, that all of a sudden are sitting next to their own child on their laptop and they're both,
You're both
working.
at work.
But I am curious, Anne, have y'all been able to identify certain areas that are in need the most when it comes to areas of child care?
There are so many areas of need. We actually convened this great stakeholder group and went into great detail, and we found we had to narrow it down from like 50 areas of need down to kind of a few areas. And to simplify, I would say there's an issue of access and awareness. So I think families often don't know about the resources that are available to support them. They may not know about the importance of early education and care, and some of the early intervention as well that is available, important for children with disabilities. That early identification is so important. And a quarter of families will have a child with disabilities. So that's one area. Provider capacity. We just found that this is a system that is incredibly complex and difficult for childcare providers to navigate. Sometimes we found that a provider would have to go get background checks multiple times for the same employees in order to meet requirements for different state agencies, for example. Data and quality. So if you want to know whether things are working or not working, the data around early childhood is fragmented across the state of Texas and here locally. And so it's difficult for policymakers trying to figure out what are the best investments to make. And it's difficult for parents just trying to figure out where is there a good quality safe place that I can put my child in immediately. And then finally, workforce development. It is challenging to train and to keep the quality educators that you would like to be working with young kids.
There's a conversation going on over in our YouTube group, and they're talking about trying to understand what kind of costs on daycare are making the cost of today's childcare so expensive. And people are commenting, oh, profit, profit, profit. Talk a little bit about why it costs so much for daycare, and is it just companies trying to make a profit, or is it that what the costs are that make it so high?
Yeah, that's a great question. The costs for childcare include staff primarily. So there is a high ratio of staff to children that is required in early childcare settings, much higher than, say, a school would require. And so that is the primary driver of the costs. But there are other costs as well. So supplies, inflation has increased the cost of the supplies. And a lot of times these are small businesses that may not know how to purchase diapers, food, et cetera, in a really efficient way. And so sometimes those inefficiencies are driving up costs as well. But most childcare providers don't have a very big margin. And then when it gets to licensing and really improving the quality of education, where you want to have a licensed teacher, at least one in your facility, that again increases the costs. The delta between what a typical early childcare teacher is paid and what a teacher in a school is paid is significant.
So when we look at this accelerator program, and if we're looking at cost, how much will it cost to fund this program?
We're still working through that. We'll have a proposal coming back to Commissioner's Court on June 11th. We think this is going to be something we can do with existing county funds with really high return on investment. So we think we're going to be able to offer this business accelerator for not too much of a price tag.
When we were talking yesterday, our guest pointed to Canada as a system where it's affordable to have childcare and the government helps with that. Do we live in an environment today in Harris County, in the state of Texas, where we can carry the cost of these things to help make it easier for families? Or is it just cost prohibitive, and so you've got to look at the things like what you folks are doing from the accelerators?
So in Harris County, there's over 300,000 kids from 0 to 5 or under the age of 5. About half of those are considered low income, so below 75% of the median state income. And that means that there's eligibility for federal funds that can be applied. And so there are federal resources that flow through the state. I think the Texas Workforce Commission and locally our Gulf Coast Workforce Board do a very good job of administering those dollars, but I think we need to look at how those funds can be complemented by other dollars. So with the leadership of State Rep Armando Wally, the state made a historic investment of $100 million last session, the first time the state has done that with unused TANF funds. Other states have done this previously. And so I think we're looking now in Texas at how can we make investments that braid together federal dollars, state dollars, and then we're looking here locally, what can we do as well, so that we can be as efficient as possible with public dollars to help support families.
So both addressing both the cost of it and the funding that comes in at the same time. Help the businesses be able to bring down their costs, help funding come in, and hopefully find a path through?
Yes.
And I am curious, when we look at the launch of the Business Accelerator Initiative, what I understand is it's designed to help childcare providers, as y'all were talking about, expand, improve quality, serve more families. Is that only for already pre-existing childcare facilities, or are y'all going to be opening this to people who are interested in maybe starting a business in childcare?
Great question. It'll be open to both existing childcare providers and to new ones, and we need both in Harris County.
Right.
Because we were talking yesterday about there being care deserts, that there's so many areas where they just don't have enough daycare. And then other areas where they've got a bunch of them because they're in higher income areas and they can charge and they're businesses that are thriving. But the average, as you said, 75% or below the level they should be at.
Right. And I know that you guys are right in the middle of, launching this program, or it's very early, into early stages. What does success look like for families in Harris County?
I think success for families will look like this fall we're going to have our first cohort for the Early Child Care Business Accelerator, fingers crossed, and that means we're going to have some 40, hopefully, businesses that are better prepared to serve their families. Hopefully we'll have new businesses as well. We'll have businesses move into a position where they are mentoring other businesses. And then that will repeat with fall and spring cohorts. And so we should have a virtuous cycle of more capable childcare providers across the county. And this is just the first installment of this coalition's work. So the Harris County Coalition on Early Childhood Education and Care is doing this work locally. And then we are also in communication with the governor's task force, the quad agency review, and really hoping to bring a Harris County voice to discussions at the state level at the upcoming legislative session so that we can be heard and we can make sure that changes in early childhood education and care are serving the needs of Harris County residents.
Ann, I know that education is something that you're extremely passionate about, you from a personal level. And I'm curious for you what it means to be the Chief Policy and Innovation Officer. What does that look like for you?
It's the privilege of a lifetime. So Commissioner Briones, I say often she's the best boss I've ever had. She's a great leader, but also a great boss. And so it's a privilege to lead a team that supports her in bringing together and convening great leaders from across the region to tackle the toughest challenges in the area.
Who all is involved in developing this and working out the kinks of it? Who's sitting in the room with you coming up with the idea of how this is going to actually roll out?
Our steering committee, like I mentioned, includes business. So we have the Greater Houston Partnership and the Greater Houston Builders Association at the table. We have nonprofits, Children at Risk, Baker Ripley, the United Way. We have governments, so we have the Gulf Coast Workforce Board, through which most of child funding from the states flows. We have the Harris County Department of Education, and then we have the Kinder Institute at Rice, so we have great academics that are advising us as well, and then we have the Powell Foundation. There's a local philanthropic table that is asked to participate and to be involved with us, and we're just incredibly grateful for their guidance because they've been working in this area and really funding research for a while.
Ann Song is the Chief Policy and Innovation Officer for Commissioner Leslie Briones in Precinct 4. And thank you so much for being here today with us on Hello Houston.
Thank you, Celeste. Thank you, Ernie.
And coming up, a former TV personality gives us an update on life. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Meet Damola, songwriter, world-class violinist, and award-winning multi-genre artist. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. Visit ridemetro.org/Damola to learn more about his ride.
what are called zero-day exploits.
Zero-day exploits are the nuclear weapons of the cybersecurity world.
Oh yeah, everything's fine. I'm Kai Rizdal, artificial intelligence and not so secure cybersecurity. That's next time on Marketplace.
You can listen to Marketplace tonight at 6:30.
On the next Fresh Air, Flea. After recording many albums with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Flea has his first solo album. We'll talk about being afraid to go home when he was young, how the Chili Peppers tried to be the wildest band ever during the punk rock era, and how he's changed. Join us.
Later today on This American Life, a woman goes into a casino, plays blackjack, loses a ton of money, and then sues the casino, which of course raises a question.
What? Why is she not liable? It seems like if you go to a casino, that's like, you know what you're doing.
Because at the time of those losses, she has...
Stories about blackjack. Later today.
You can listen to This American Life. It's on tonight at 10 p.m.
Support comes from the Grand 1894 Opera House, presenting Dinosaur World Live, a stage production featuring interactive elements and life-size dinosaur puppets, including a Triceratops, a T-Rex, and more. May 2nd and 3rd. thegrand.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manouse and Celeste Díaz Schurman.
Today we're joined by someone many Houstonians recognize from their screens, Tessa Barrera, who recently signed off from Houston Life after becoming a familiar and very trusted voice in lifestyle, community, and culture. Now she's stepping into a new chapter, and we're catching up with her to talk about what's next, what she's learned, and how she landed in Houston. So joining us now is media personality Tessa Barrera. Welcome.
Guys, thanks so much for having me. Oh my gosh, your studio's so nice. Everyone should know. It is full of personality, just like you guys. It's beautiful. It's really, kudos. Kudos to the set designer here.
Okay,
Yes.
I got a weird question for you to start off.
I love weird questions.
If you had it all to do over again, would you still have chose media?
Oh yeah, I think media chose me when I was actually younger. A lot of people don't know this. My mom hates this story, you guys, by the way, because I used to watch. It was like Lily Flores Vela. That was our anchor in Corpus Christi, Texas, where I'm born and raised. And I remember the presenters of the news, the anchors, and I told my mom when I was graduating high school, we were like trying to figure out what my major was, and I go, I'd really like to do what those ladies do. She goes, oh, mija. Please. Those are for well-connected, like beauty pageant queens. And I was neither of those things. And so I go, well, okay, I guess I'll major in business. And, and I hated it, of course, but I feel like media and I found each other, and I always knew. I mean, even when I got to be like interviewed when I was a senior in high school for basketball, it was like my turn to talk to the media because we would make playoffs. And I was like, this is it. I've made it, getting the little local interview. It was always so fun for me.
Totally. But, right here locally, you just wrapped up your time on Houston Life. And what kind of made it feel like this was the right time to kind of move on or step away from that?
Well, my contract was up.
Yeah.
So that was it. When I first signed on, it was so crazy because I had done the Rod Ryan show for 5 years. Yeah. And the Rod Ryan show is like this well-oiled machine. I mean, down to the second, I can tell you what time it is, like depending on what we're doing, whether it be trending, what game we were playing. And it was beginning to feel like, okay, am I growing or am I just kind of sitting in this chair doing the routine? And I was very close actually to going back to Los Angeles. I started in news radio, KFI there. I didn't start there, but that's where I came from. That's where I transported from Burbank, California to Houston. That's how I heard about the Houston gig with Rod Ryan. Yeah. And the anchor who I would fill in for there was leaving. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, I think I might need a change a little bit. Sure. And for the first time ever, she was like, you know what? You know what you need. And I was like, oh my gosh, if you're a Latina, you know that having your parents' blessing for anything to go far away from them is like so few and far between. So I said, okay.
Yeah.
And that exact day, I got a call from the GM at the time from KPRC, who was Phil Lane, and he said, Tess, we're going to let you do both. We're going to let you do the radio and the TV show. And I was like, yes, Mom, like chills, right?
Yeah.
And so I was doing both for a year, and it was like 14-hour days, but I would do the radio show in the morning. I would bustle over to KPRC. I would get ready and then boom, do the news tease. And then we'd be in it and we'd be in it. And then I'd stay till as late as I could, which would be about 4:30, 5:30, go home, try to have some sort of workout dinner, and then do it again. And it was, have you seen The Devil Wears Prada, where the assistant is like, I love my job, I love my job, I love my job. You know, because I'm working in these great shows, and I was burning out. I knew I had to pick one or the other.
Yeah.
So with KPRC, chose to do that. Did unfortunately take a little bit of a pay cut. And when I said to myself, I said, okay, I'm going to do so well at this. And then when the contract is up, I'll ask for, you know, what I think is a reasonable raise. We couldn't agree. You know, that's just what it came down to. They don't hate me. I don't hate them. We couldn't agree. And I said, okay, well, I think it feels like time for a reset, a refresh, and not a rebrand, but I wish I could say I had a backup plan and I had this and this and this waiting, but I just didn't. And I have afforded myself, because I've worked so hard, I've afforded myself a little bit of time to kind of figure it out, and it's really fun. I'm golfing. I'm talking
Tessa,
to my
I think,
niece
though,
every day.
You're speaking to a lot of women and even men, millennials, that we are in this place where you're told, go get your degree, get that work, hustle, 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 do the job, be the yes person, take two jobs because you're lucky to have them, and these are opportunities, and you do all those things, and then you hit a certain age, I'll say 40 for me, and you start
What's that like?
realize you'll be there one day,
One
Ernie.
day.
And you start to realize I have been working so hard, and now I kind of want to do things on my own terms. And you did that, and you walked away from that. That's also really scary.
Oh, totally. It's totally, but it feels exciting. It feels
Yeah.
exciting. It feels like there is an opportunity to kind of build my life the way I want to. And when you reflect at 40, also my age right now, you say, wow, yes, I was absolutely lucky to be in those rooms. But those rooms were damn lucky to have me too.
Yes.
I felt like I made them better too. So it's a fine line of, you know, places can be both. You know, Rod Ryan's show, for as crazy as I feel like that show made me sometimes, some of my best memories. I mean, the listeners there, I love this city so much. I bought a house because I was like, I'm going to live here. I love this community. This is my spot. And that's what my big takeaway is, was how welcoming Houston is, and how wonderful these people are. I don't care. The summers can be hot. The traffic can be miserable, but just the support of the people and the welcoming, and, you know, you make a couple people laugh, they really start to support you and like you. And I feel all of the love. I do. And I hope I can give some of it back.
Well, since when you talk about deciding when is the right time to value yourself and decide, you know what, I'm going to step away. And for me, 30 years ago, I was doing radio in Chicago, and whole slate of new management came in, changed what we were doing, and I thought, you know, that's not right for me. I'll just go to another show. And so I walked away, like you, without the next plan in place. I thought, what am I doing? Luckily, Houston Public Media and I, back then Channel 8, we hooked up. I came here. It's been 30 years.
Amazing.
And it's like, it's really cool, because when you think the door has closed and you're like, what am I going to do now? It opens you up to the freedom to try something new. If I had stayed at the station that was going a different direction than what I wanted, I wouldn't be here today.
I think it's a perfect time to assess everything, because it's not just the work relationships. It's the things that maybe aren't serving me anymore. It's finally saying, I want to go where I'm wanted. I want to go where I'm excited to go. I deserve to be excited about the things I'm doing too, and I think outside looking in, because of social media, we're constantly seeing a highlight reel of everyone else's life
all
and
the time.
What they think you should do, but you get to really dial into that inner voice, and at your core, where you should be.
And that's the thing, right? Is it feels like, because we're always on social media, we're there. At least for me, a lot of times I'm like, life isn't an Instagram post. Life is happening when you're in your car and the noise is quiet, and you're thinking, why are you laughing
Because
at
I'm
me?
thinking to myself, Celeste's life exists between her Instagram posts. That's where she squeezes life in. Because you have a wonderful Instagram presence. If people aren't following Celeste, please do that now. It's separate from our show because now they can follow your adventures as you move on.
Totally.
Yes.
I will be following.
So just really quickly, May 21st, I'm putting this out there for everybody, is Ernie's actual 30th year anniversary of
That's
being
huge.
at Houston
At this
Public Media.
station.
At this station.
Oh my gosh.
30 years.
You love your job.
Well, you know, I will tell you.
Tessa,
and
he
it's-
loves the people he works with.
Yeah, but they keep leaving me, Celeste.
Sorry.
The thing is that's different is that I've been afforded the opportunity over those 30 years to do different shows.
Yeah.
Different
Creative.
than being on
Yeah.
one show for 30 years. So, and I
it's a
know
big
people
thing.
in this industry don't always have that opportunity. So I've got to say that when people like 30 years at one place, 30 years at like 14 different places all in the same building.
That's beautiful.
it's a little
That's
different.
beautiful.
I jumped in. I used to work in commercial television. I was a producer, so I was behind the scenes. But whenever I came to Houston Public Media, I remember thinking, like, not just one, do I love working in an organization that has a mission for education and information, but also I'm still in media, and this is truly the best kept secret to work at.
I agree. I think people should know more about Hello Houston. We need to spread the good word. You know, it's just like going to Sunday service. You got to spread the good word on what you know, things that help people that are in this city that affect their lives.
I want to go back to something you were hitting on a little bit ago about media and today's media landscape, even though, and you're considerably younger than me, it's changed during your time in media too. And Celeste brings up streaming and social media and all of that. Do you think broadcast, does that still exist as powerful a source as where you want to be? Or should we be, from your point of view, exploring those other options? Is the path forward going into social media? Is it online? Is it YouTube? Does traditional broadcast still hold the same thrill?
I think so. I think that Houston Life is a very special show in that, you know, you have this platform and Houston's so big that so many things are happening. So many big names come here. So many big festivals come here. So I think that is what they are building over there. And I thought that was great. I think personally for talent, it's a different story because, you know, you have this platform to be all this, but it's not Tessa on social media, it's KPRC Tessa.
Right.
And that to me was kind of like holding my hand, like one hand tied behind my back type of deal, where it's like, no, I have a platform working together. You have to work with the people that are telling the stories of Houstonians have to have this flexibility. Like you were talking about, you know, I've been able to kind of grow and switch roles and do this and do that. Well, let's try this. Well, that didn't really work. Well, then let's try this. I think that if places are less rigid, then you have a big opportunity to do that more.
Correction, it all really worked, but just
I do think, though, that we are looking at, I want to make sure we read this because we got such a nice comment. Alex Garza says, so fun to see Tessa Barrera on today. Thank you for sharing your voice and light with all of us.
Isn't that so nice? Isn't that so nice? What other job do you have where people are telling you,
No.
hey, you're doing a good job, 2 thumbs up. I was at the Rockets game the other night. Me and my husband love you. What? Excuse me. I love you and your husband. So thank you for loving me. It's like such a fun situation and relationship to have with a community that like they know me, and so when I meet, I'm like, what is your name? What do you do? Like I want to reciprocate any of that energy
I was
back.
in an event with a bunch of folks in the business, and we were all hugging each other, and the person that was with me turned to me and said, you know, you people are really odd because no other profession do they do that. Plumbers don't all get together, see each other, and run up and hug each other. And it's like, well, we're media people. We're a family here.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, Tessa, thanks for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
And we
Looking
appreciate
forward
it.
to the next chapter.
Hey, anytime, guys. I will say my schedule is a little opened up right now. So if you need anything, you just
We'll let you
holler,
know.
okay?
Tessa,
Thanks.
we're definitely going to take you up on that. We want to thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. Coming up, we're going to continue discussing today's top headlines. We're also going to discuss what Superfund sites are and where they exist in Harris County. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Visit Galveston, presenting La Izquierda Fest, a tribute to Galveston's coastal spirit. This celebration includes live music, a surfing contest, and local artists. May 1st and 2nd. Visit galveston.com.
Support comes from Galveston Historical Foundation, presenting the 52nd Annual Historic Homes Tour. Architectural history is shown through tours of private residences and special events. The first 2 weekends of May. GalvestonHistory.org.
We have 84 degrees. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead this hour of Hello Houston, the Department of Justice has secured a second indictment against former FBI Director James Comey over a photo that allegedly threatened President Trump. We'll discuss this and more of today's top headlines. I'm Ernie Manouse.
And I'm Celeste Schurman. We'll also discuss what Superfund sites are and where they exist in Harris County with the program director of the Baylor College of Medicine Rice Superfund Research Program.
Plus, we'll also learn all about the Health Museum's annual Global Teen Medical Summit and how it gives high school students the opportunity to explore modern-day health and bioscience challenges.
Also, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Supreme Court has weakened the Voting Rights Act's protections against racial discrimination when congressional districts are redrawn. The High Court had found that Louisiana's congressional maps amounted to, quote, unconstitutional racial gerrymander. The justices voted 6-3 to strike down a map that created a second majority black congressional district in the state. NPR's Hansi Lo Wang reports the ruling could affect the redrawing of Florida's congressional map.
For decades, in places where voting is racially polarized, the Voting Rights Act Section 2 provisions had helped ensure that racial minority voters aren't shut out during the redrawing of political maps, and that districts are drawn in a way that gives minority voters a chance of electing their preferred candidates. The new ruling from the Supreme Court's conservative majority weakens those protections, and it applies to redistricting at all levels of government. In Florida, state lawmakers who are in a special session on redistricting may create a new congressional map. Many redistricting experts expect Republican-controlled state legislatures in the South to eliminate at least some Democratic-represented House districts that were likely protected under the Voting Rights Act. That could lead to the largest ever decline in representation by black members of Congress. Hansi Lo Wang, NPR News.
Senate Democrats are raising concerns President Trump could next turn his attention to initiating U.S. military action in Cuba. NPR's Clara Grisales reports they forced a floor vote to try to get lawmakers to weigh in.
It's part of a series of votes in recent months to push the president to come to Congress to seek authorization for military action. However, the GOP-led Senate blocked the efforts as lawmakers loyal to Trump say he's been working well within his commander-in-chief powers. The latest Democratic-led measure to limit Trump's war powers in Cuba was blocked in a vote of 51-47. Only two Republicans, Maine's Susan Collins and Kentucky's Rand Paul, joined Democrats to force a debate should Trump decide to use military action in Cuba. Later this week, Democrats also plan to force war power votes on the Iran conflict, which will hit the 60-day mark at the end of this week. Claudia Salis, NPR News.
The State Department says it plans to issue a limited number of passports containing President Trump's image starting this summer. Here's NPR's Michelle Kellerman.
State Department spokesperson Tommy Pigott says the U.S. is releasing a limited edition U.S. passport to commemorate America's 250th anniversary in July. The new designs will be available only at the Washington Passport Agency, and until they run out, the State Department posted a picture of one page with Trump's formal portrait over the Declaration of Independence. It also includes his signature in gold lettering. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the United Nations.
This is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Jack Williams. A criminal investigation is underway into several Fort Bend ISD employees. They were recently fired following safety concerns at a Fresno elementary school involving special needs students. News 88.7 Fort Bend County reporter Melissa Inahe has more.
The Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office is handling a case that involves several students who are in the special education class at Walter Moses Burton Elementary. One of the alleged incidents includes a 6-year-old autistic and nonverbal student whose family found him bruised after coming home from school. Fort Bend ISD released a statement saying they've reported the matter to Child Protective Services and are fully cooperating with the ongoing investigation. For News 88.7, I'm Melissa Nahe.
Exploration of new oil fields is becoming a top priority again for many major companies. That's according to a recent report from data analytics company Wood Mackenzie. However, the impacts on Houston could be limited. Here's Andrew Latham, a senior vice president with Wood Mackenzie.
A lot of the exploration industry around the world is led from Houston, and the geoscientists and the engineers that are leading and doing that work are working in Houston, but we're not seeing a enormous growth in the number of people that the industry employs.
The company says the increased oil exploration does not appear to be related to the war in Iran. And early voting is now underway in the special election to fill the District C position on Houston City Council. District C includes the Heights, Montrose, and Meyerland. Nick Hellier and Joe Panzarella are running to replace Abby Kamen, who's stepping down to run for Harris County Attorney. The early vote runs through May 12th. The election day is May 16th. Sports Rockets take on the Lakers in Game 5 of the NBA playoffs tonight in Los Angeles. Could see some large hail, maybe some strong winds later this afternoon here in the Houston area. Cloudy the rest of the day. A 30% chance of thunderstorms, the high of around 90. 84 degrees and cloudy here at the U of H. I'm Jack Williams, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now your hosts for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse and Celeste Díaz Schurman.
Welcome back to the second hour of Hello Houston. Today is April 29th. 2026, and we're glad that you're here.
Getting close to the end of the month.
Getting close
Almost
to the end
can
of the
touch
month.
it. They're so close. Something, though, that's been occupying my time all morning is what just came out the Supreme Court, a new ruling out of the Supreme Court this morning. It could reshape how voting maps are challenged nationwide. That's why we need to pay attention. In a 6-3 ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Louisiana's current congressional map, saying lawmakers relied too heavily on race when creating a second majority black district. Writing for the majority, Justice Alito said the Voting Rights Act does not justify race-based line drawing unless there's clear evidence of intentional discrimination. The ruling tightens how Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act can be used, likely making it harder for minority voters to challenge maps in court. The decision lands just months before midterm elections and could prompt new redistricting battles, as if we haven't seen enough of those, not just in Louisiana, but across the country. To help us break it down a little bit more is Andrew Schneider, Houston Public Media's politics and government reporter. Welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
This is new. This is fresh. It just came down this morning. We knew that this was being heard, though, and being decided upon. Initial takeaway from what you heard from the Supreme Court.
I've been speaking with a number of legal experts over the last hour, and most of them were talking along the lines of essentially what Justice Kagan said when she was issuing her dissent. She had described it as rendering Section 2, that's the provision of the Voting Rights Act that allows enforcement of the Voting Rights Act, all but a dead letter. It says she said it would eliminate the lion's share of claims brought under that part of the Voting Rights Act. So what does that mean? Well, effectively for Texas, little in the short term because we just had redistricting last year. There's relatively little time. Voting is already underway for the primaries for this year, or it are going to be underway for the primary runoffs. We've already had the first round. But what it does mean is that possibly as soon as next year, we could see another round of redistricting. And we can expect to see that as they were saying at the top of the hour, in states across the South where the Voting Rights Act has effectively prohibited race-based gerrymandering over the past several decades.
To clarify what you just said there, you said another round of redistricting. More redistricting or more challenges to maps we currently have?
No, more redistricting. I mean, effectively, this gives the state legislature the option of redrawing maps as they see fit, in line with efforts to maximize partisan advantage without having to worry about interference from the courts or interference from the Supreme Court in terms of such maps being called racially biased.
So help me here, because I was under the understanding, and I could be wrong, that the Supreme Court had already said redistricting was in today's world now, redistricting was fine along political lines, but not along racial lines.
Right.
So then what did this do to change what that was already decided?
Well, you have to look at some of the wording from the Supreme Court in terms of this decision, because effectively what was being decided in Louisiana was whether a district that had been drawn to represent an African-American majority was permissible. And they called that an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. In other words, creating a district that provided the opportunity for African Americans to elect a representative of their choice, that by itself was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. So effectively, this opens the door for any kind of partisan gerrymandering, even that what might previously have been prohibited as an unconstitutional racial gerrymander, to go forward.
Wow. So I guess understanding, if you can, read the minds of the justices, their understanding of how we are represented through our districts. If we have a community of a certain type of people, any certain type of people that want to be fairly represented, have their voice heard because there is a group of them, are we saying you can't, unless that group is a partisan group, you cannot draw lines to include a group of like-minded people who want to be represented solely on that grounds?
It makes it much harder to do that going forward.
Andrew, thank you very much for checking into this. It's new. It's just developing. We're going to see the implications of it, not just in the days, months, but in years to come. I'm worried about that. Do we have, coming out of the Supreme Court, any more gerrymandering or district map cases pending?
I have to admit, I have not. I don't have a full list of the cases that they're considering.
All right, Andrew, thank you very much. Andrew Schneider is the Houston Public Media politics and government reporter who will be joining me on May 26th. We're going to be doing a live election show that night. And I was looking at you to see if you agreed or wait, what are you talking about, Ernie? I didn't agree to this.
No,
so
that is true.
Yes, we'll be back on doing live coverage that night as we see results coming in from Harris County and the state of Texas. Andrew, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
And you can always head to HoustonPublicMedia.org to see more of Andrew's coverage.
Yeah, I'm just so concerned about the maps and how we're doing this and how people are finding representation and where it goes from there. Kind of surprising.
I think I feel less concerned about maps and just more concerned that the confusion that this has put out there in regards to districts and voting and understanding, okay, where do I go? What election are we in? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and somebody said, I think it was a caller or somebody in our YouTube chat a while back was talking about, now that we have AI should be able to draw fair, equitable maps across the country, and that all these wild gerrymanderings of looping in people and all of that, we should just do away with it. It's so many people get so much representation. You just do a grid system and then you adjust that grid how it works to fit people. This whole thing of, you look at District C, which right now we've got going on here for the city. This is such a bizarrely drawn map, and it cuts out one pocket and puts that in. It's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. That is just one piece of news that's current and hot. But as always, we have our headlines still to come. More going on with justice in our country. You want to take this story for me?
Sure will. The Justice Department has secured a 2-count indictment against former FBI Director James Comey, alleging he threatened President Trump in a social media post. A grand jury says Comey posted a photo last year of seashells arranged on a North Carolina beach spelling out 8647, which prosecutors say is coded language. 86 is slang for get rid of, and 47 is being interpreted as a reference to the president, President Trump, the 47th president. The grand jury also issued an arrest warrant for Comey, according to court documents. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says both charges carry a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, adding that threatening the life of the President of the United States will never be tolerated by the Justice Department. What are your thoughts on the charges being brought forward against Comey? Give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870. Yeah.
Is that a comment? Can I just do that? Is that my full statement?
Okay, Ernie,
Yes.
Educate me here.
All right.
I thought we'd already gone through this.
No, we went through something else with Comey, and they had indicted him and brought him in. They
Correct.
threw that out.
For this exact language.
It wasn't for the seashells. It was for secrets that I'm trying to remember exactly. My memory is horrible.
Right.
I think it had to do with whether he said things that he was not allowed to say in books he had written, things like. Somebody will correct me on this. This was a bee in the bonnet of the president, this Instagram post, which he put up and took right back down again. This is new case on that particular thing. What it looks like is, I don't know if bullying is the right term, but it's like, okay, you didn't get him on this one. Well, how about this one? And then if you don't get him on, we'll find him on something else, because he is somebody the president is not liking or does not like. And also he was part of that list of that tweet that was, or that truthism that was put out by the president that was supposed to be a private message between him and Pam Bondi when he said, these three people, why aren't we going after them? They all need to be gone after. And he was one of them. So the president was going to find a way to go after him one way or another. Is some way of perceiving it.
All politics aside, I do think it's comical to me that our president, who loves social media and puts social media posts out very regularly, would be so offended over a social media post when his posts don't seem to bother anybody.
Well, they bother a lot of people. It's just they don't bother him because he's the one putting them out and he's there. I guess in the bigger issue of all of this, and now Comey says that he saw, if I'm remembering correctly, he saw the 8647 on the beach and took a picture of it. Others say he laid it out and took a picture of it. That's beside the point. The point is putting the picture out, the image out. Do we see that as a threat against the life of the President of the United States? Most legal experts that I've seen talking about this and debating it say there's no there. There's nothing they're going to make stick. It is far from a threat against the life of a president. That, as somebody even posted here in our chat, I'm rolling back to it. 86, this is Noah writes, 86 in the restaurant industry means you've run out of an item or that an item is unsafe to serve in respect to community guidelines. I would say I would not say more of this. Yeah, it's like 86 means it's done.
Right.
Doesn't mean I think someone should go and kill the president. Now, it gets traction because of what happened over the weekend. So now you can say, look at how this continues to happen to the president. It's voices like this that are causing that.
A lot of speculation there. But we do have a call from Antonelli, who is calling us from
West Chase.
Welcome to Hello Houston, Antonelli. What is your comment or question?
Hi, how you guys doing? Thank you so much for taking my comment. My comment is just the timing feels so weird. Like we're operating in a space where Pam Bondi just got fired, and it feels like everybody who's a lawyer in the Trump administration wants to jockey for that attorney general position. So it just feels very much like, hey, I'm the pick-me person that the president can rely on to punish his political enemies. And then at the same time, it feels like with all these legal experts in the administration, they're using such weak legal arguments, especially when you have to prove intent for the charges that Comey is being brought up on. Why does the bar that these people are associated with not have the right to revoke their legal licenses or something when they bring up these type of, salacious charges on someone? Because, Comey is a former FBI director, but he's still an American citizen. So no one should have to deal with that kind of, harassment and have, people who are operating as lawyers pull up crazy charges like this.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating. I will say also, as during our break, I had wandered through the newsroom and the TVs that are on, that Comey is either in court or about to be in court today about this. So I don't know where that's developed, just so that we're letting you all know that we are right on board with it. And yeah, it's interesting, the timing of this. It's interesting who he's going after. It's interesting why. But as we know, he seems to have I was going to say a target on, and now I'm sure that that's inciting violence and using that term. He has got his cackles are up when it comes to James Comey. Thank you, Antonelli, for calling and sharing your thoughts. I want to go back to what Celeste and I were talking about a minute ago. And yeah, the first federal case against former FBI Director James Comey was in September 2012, accusing him of making false statements and obstructing justice regarding the 2020 Senate testimony about media leaks. That's what they went after him for first. That was dismissed in November 2025. So now we've got something new to throw at him. And if this goes out of court, which very likely it will, they'll have something else, I'm sure.
Seashells
arranged in a way that upsets you.
Okay, so in the first hour of Hello Houston, we were talking about Democratic State Representative Jim Talarico leading the polls. Yes, and Ken Paxton, and we were talking about, just that race that's coming up, and we received an email, and this lady says, I'm voting for Ken Paxton without a doubt, and so is my husband. My friends are as well. So I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that with us.
Did she give any reason why?
She gave no reason why. She just said, I will be voting for Ken Paxton without a doubt.
Who is that from?
This
give a screen namey thing, a hint. Well, if you wrote us and told us that, I'd be curious to know what it is you like about Ken Paxton, especially over our current state senator. It was an
email that was sent.
The email. And let us know. What is it about Ken Paxton that makes you say this is the person we're voting for? Just out of curiosity, just like I would ask anyone, what is it about James Talarico or Cornyn? What is it that attracts you to that particular candidate? So we can talk a little more about that. Thank you for sharing.
Yep. And again, 713-440-8870. Our phone lines have been a little quiet today.
Oh, yes, but our chat hasn't been. I'm seeing a lot of people saying things. I just think, it's an interesting time for our country when so many things are of import that somebody taking a picture and posting a social media post, which is long past, and that I know of or have heard of, unless the government has more information on this, has reacted to the post that Comey made a while back, which he did then remove, has incited no violence, that no violence has been tied to it. Even then, there have been issues of people being outraged by the current behavior of the administration. There doesn't seem to be any tie to what James Comey put out there. Yet we have seen violence that has come out, as you were saying earlier, by messaging posted on social media by currently sitting in office administration people. I'll put it as mildly as that. Somebody else did say, it's hard to see because I've got something up on my screen that I can't dismiss and I want to. There we go. Let me find it real quick.
Well,
you look for
while
something.
You do that, I'm going to say, it was during our other interview with Tessa Barrera, a media personality who was formerly on KPRC, Ernie mentioned how, other people don't give hugs
Oh, yeah. We got a comment about that.
David Ford wrote, biologists do at meetings, LOL, big huggers.
Yes. What I was looking for, and thank you for that. Yeah, if your industry hugs each other when you see them, let us know. I'm kind of curious to see who else does this. Doris wrote us and said, Ernie, in my humble opinion, interesting is too mild for gerrymandering we have. Yes, I said it's very interesting. I will sometimes try and find language that I find is not inciting people and does not excite them in a way it shouldn't be. It's just to show that we are curious. 713-440-8870. Claire from Meyerland is on the line. Claire, what's on your mind today?
Well, I just find it curious that this is such a sin and crime for James Comey to do this when the president himself has said we can annihilate an entire civilization and also threatened the death penalty against the senators who created those videos asking military not to follow an illegal order. It just seems very, very, as usual, hypocritical to me.
Yeah, I don't think most would disagree with you on that. I think that's the problem, is that there is not equity across the board anymore, and there doesn't seem to be much call for it. I go back to Melania Trump's comments about the late night host.
Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel. And that it's like, well, and Jimmy Kimmel's reaction was, look in your own house. Look at where this ugly language is also coming from, and attacks and threats. I just think we need to find civility across the board. And you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. You know, you can't say hateful things about people and then in the other breath say, I'm a victim of people saying hateful things about me.
Oh, but
But
as
it
we
happens.
see, you can. And you can also be reelected. So with that coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk about the Superfund sites with the program director and principal investigator of the Baylor College of Medicine Rice Superfund Research Program. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
1 o'clock.
In a time when many wealthy people have shifted their assets into various accounts for tax dodging, this would be another way to go after the real wealth that people have and try to provide more for people in society who have so little.
I'm Natalie Kitroeff. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
You can hear that tonight at 7 o'clock.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe. R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Visit Galveston, presenting Art Walk. Various art is featured in downtown galleries and artist studios. Open to the public on the second Saturday of each month. More at visitgalveston.com.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now.
Support comes from Rice University. Founded in 1912, Rice is a private research university with programs in business, the sciences, and more. Students conduct research in fields from health to space exploration. More at rice.edu.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manouse and Celeste Díaz Schurman.
From contaminated industrial sites to long-term environmental cleanup efforts, Superfund sites are a reality in communities across the country, including right here in the Houston area. Places like the San Jacinto River waste pits highlight both the impact of these sites and the ongoing effort to understand how these toxic waste sites affect public health, especially as extreme weather raises concerns about increased human exposure. And today we're taking a closer look at what Superfund sites are, where they exist in Harris County, and how researchers are studying their effects, including new studies focused on chemical exposure in children and pregnant women. And joining us now is Dr. Bhagavatula Murthy, the program director and principal investigator at the Baylor College of Medicine Rice Superfund Research Program. Dr. Murthy, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me and for having me at today's show.
Absolutely.
I guess we'll start with, and I know she put an explainer in the beginning, but help us understand what exactly are Superfund sites. And you have to hit that D hard because it sounds like Superfund sites is something very different than Superfund.
Actually, yes, thank you. Yeah, that is correct. So to actually define Superfund sites, they're actually hazardous waste sites federally mandated by the U.S. EPA. And this happens because of chemical accumulation of chemicals due to industrial activity. And that leads to, which contaminates the environment. And that leads to health risks for the communities that live close to the Superfund sites.
Before we get into all the problems that they can cause and the issues and the concerns, are there alternatives? In a world we live in today, we're going to have this waste in the world we've created.
Correct.
Are these the only way to handle this, or is there a better way to approach it?
Exactly. That's right. So your question is how better to approach. So right now what we have is remediation program. Actually, the U.S. government, EPA funds cleanup of these activities. And so I think what we are doing in our laboratory is that with collaboration with RISE is to develop novel remediation technologies at the laboratory scale so that this can be applied at a larger scale.
But you're talking remediation. You're talking about work after the fact.
Right.
Should we even have these to start with, or is this the only alternative with the type of industry in the world we live in today?
Yeah, I don't see anything, unless we really, do something major. I don't see any other way other than this.
So they're a necessary evil to have them.
Necessary, yes.
But then the next step is how do we clean them up, and that's what you folks are working on.
And also reduce exposures.
Right. And so what are you seeing in regards to how do we clean these up?
So exactly, that's exactly the point. Right now, what EPA does clean up at this point, as we speak. But what happens is what is safe is again very relative term. What EPA determines is safe may not be safe. So what we are trying to we have collaborators at Rice University, Dr. Naomi Harris, who has developed surface-enhanced Raman spectroscopy and also surface infrared absorption spectroscopy to look at novel detection technologies. For example, she can look at 1 parts per billion of these molecules, So that is very important to know because we remediate these small amount of chemicals for over a long time can cause problems. And then we have Dr. Pedro Alvarez at the Rice University also in the remediation who has developed some novel pyrolysis approaches to look at low energy and also convert these, not only just remediate, but also make these chemicals better. So the soil quality actually improves with their new catalytic mechanisms using iron in the clay. So I think what we are trying to do at Baylor College of Medicine at Rice is to jointly collaborate and develop novel technologies so that cleanup will be better and they can inform risk assessment strategies to the U.S. EPA.
So I understand that you are looking at how to make the cleanup better and have more information about this. But I'm curious, when we look at places like the San Jacinto River waste pits, what makes this site particularly concerning, maybe compared to others nationally? And give us an example of how the work that y'all are doing would work, towards that specifically.
Okay, great. So mainly so we also look at South Cavalcade, North Cavalcade, the other 2 Superfund sites in Harris County area. They basically contain polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which is in abundance, and so these cause actually preterm births. So as you know, Houston Harris County has a very high preterm birth rate compared to the national average. For example, 12.1% versus 10.6%. So what happens when a baby is born preterm? When you say preterm, that means baby is born before 37 weeks gestation, right? So, and when you have the low birth weight babies and really preterm 24, 25 weekers, what we have found in our first cycle of the Superfund was we found a clear association between these PAHs leading to preterm birth or associating or contributing to the risk for preterm birth. And that preterm, when these babies are born too early, for example, 24, 25 weeker, they get admitted to the neonatal intensive care unit, which is, I'm proud to be part of the faculty there at Texas Children's Hospital. And our colleagues, physicians, nurses, and the entire fellows and the team, they treat these babies. They take care of these little infants because most of the time these preterm babies have to undergo mechanical ventilation and oxygen supplementation just to survive. But then this causes effects like bronchopulmonary dysplasia in preterm infants or chronic lung disease. So we are now, so answer your question, we are now we have established a clear link between exposure to PAHs or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons in the Superfund sites, preterm birth, and then chronic lung disease in infants. And this, again, even after the babies do okay and they get discharged, they could develop neurocognitive deficit later in life. So this industrial activity that happens has a persistent effect to human health, not just for this generation, to vulnerable moms who are expecting babies, but also to the children and baby grandchildren. So I think this is a huge problem, and we need to have more research to develop better strategies to basically combat this.
So listening to you speak, Dr. Murthy, I think to myself, okay, yes, I'm seeing the connection between, here we have the data, the information that is looking and showing, okay, we have a link to low early birth rates.
Preterm birth,
Yes, and preterm birth rates. And we know that this area, the San Jacinto River, waste pit, we can link this together. So then what is the next part of that conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we have found, what we are doing as a research unit. So let me also explain one thing. One aspect of U.S. EPA is to clean up, right? But then there is a Superfund Research program that I am principal in, is funded by the National Institute of Health, National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, which is part of the National Institute of Health. So our focus is to develop technologies at the laboratory level, and also to look at translational aspects, looking at patients. And so if we figure out how the mechanisms, how these chemicals cause disease, then we can go back and look at prevention of this through reduced exposures.
So looking at the chemicals almost as the root cause of it, and then trying to figure out how you can make those chemicals cleaner.
Exactly.
But what does that exactly mean when we look at that for people that live within that area?
Right. Fantastic question. So we also have a community engagement program which is funded by the National. It's part of our BCM RISE research program. That's being we are partnering with University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. Folks there are experts at community engagement. So we also have community advisory boards. They go to communities who are impacted and teach them, educate them on how to reduce exposure. For example, we have science cafes. We have citizen science. It's also bidirectional, so we get feedback from the community members. We have these are our concerns. We listen to that and we try to address, and they come back to us and we do laboratory research to address these concerns.
So if I'm understanding you correctly here then, so the idea is that in the cleanup, you nullify the negative impact of these chemicals. Can that be done before they go into the sites? Should industry be doing this before it becomes a problem?
That's a great question. Actually, yeah, they could be doing, but it doesn't happen in real world. So that's why the government has allotted budget, like a couple of billion for the US EPA. But then in addition, the NIH's, the Superfund program itself is a nationwide. Every year they fund, it's like 30 million or 40 million a year of budget to universities. And there are about 24 centers in the U.S. that do work, just focus on research.
Yeah. This may be an unfair question. If it is, feel free to say, no, you don't want to go there. But it seems odd to me, listening to what you're talking about, that we spend so much time as a conscious group in our nation worrying about vaccines and the impact it has on children, when you are drawing a direct correlation between these Superfund sites and the problems it's causing in children, should we maybe be using some of the effort over there on this because we see the direct connection and maybe we've spent too much time and attention on the vaccine end of it?
Well, again, I'm not an expert on vaccines, but I would like to tell that, again, I think both are important because you need to also prevent, so vaccines actually help against infection,
Right.
So that's
I'm not saying vaccines are wrong. I'm saying vaccines are right, and that the idea that they cause some of the problems that you are directly showing the lines between these Superfunds actually causing.
Yeah, well, I mean, how to answer that question? I would like to say that I don't know if there's enough evidence in the literature that vaccines do cause these diseases yet. So I think, I'm not a big expert on vaccines. I would rather get into the actual focus of our research.
Yes.
Well, one of the interesting parts of your research, Dr. Muthi, is also weather events and how extreme weather events like hurricanes and floodings can change essentially the risk profile of these sites.
Correct.
So now we understand there's these direct links. You're starting to understand how the chemical exposure affects these community. And then you have potentially a hurricane coming that could totally change the profile of the area.
Yes.
Explain to me how you calculate and work around that.
Well, we are actually, you're correct. But that's more of a long-term thing. Right now, we are focusing on the impact of preterm chemicals or preterm births. And I do agree with you. I do understand the issues, but we are not there yet. I think this is more of a long-term solution to look at the impact of weather and climate change on.
Let me ask this question. For people who find themselves living near these sites today, what can they be doing to protect themselves and their families?
Right. That's a great question. That's exactly what our community engagement does. So we go into the communities. In fact, I was participating in some of the science cafes in Health Museum in the weekends. So people come from all over the world. They say all over the county, and they say we are concerned about this. So what we tell them is in fact, there are also signs like there is seafood. Don't consume seafood from contaminated waters in those areas. That we clearly have signs. So we educate them. We teach these people living in these communities not to consume and also limit exposure to these. Also groundwater also has contamination. So we advise them to not have waters from those areas, and contaminated areas. So that's clear. We try and do as much as we can to prevent exposures.
So
that really help.
So you're looking at, making sure that there's community awareness and education and how to navigate living in these areas. So then, which brings me to almost the flip side, Dr. Murthy, knowing what you know from your research and your expertise, if you could, moving forward, change anything about how Superfund sites are handled in our area, what would it be?
If I could change, what would be is what I would do is develop even easier, better technologies.
Yes.
And I think that will really help, also in cleanups, and also it will be environmentally friendlier, So because sometimes some of these cleanups could also make the chemicals worse. So so I think if I were to do this, if I were to have any, if I were to have the, I would say, power to change things.
Yes.
What I would do is I'll invest more into the research, into the Superfund program, so that we can develop even better technologies, safer, cleaner for the environment and for the people living near these areas.
If all things work according to plan today, if everything was going well today, how long would it take to clean up these sites?
Cleaning up sites is an ongoing process, sir. Because this could, it's not that it's all done and never, because like I said,
they keep adding to
safety. What EPA says safe is not entirely safe, because there are chemicals that are seep from the groundwater. They can persist for a long time. So this is an ongoing process. So I think our goal, I don't think we can completely stop the cleanup. Cleanup is important because there will be industrial activity. We cannot stop that. So there is a persistent activity happening. and that's important actually. But what can help is we can really look at these hazardous waste sites, and maybe there are ways to improve the technology associated with remediation and also the research to figure out how these chemicals cause, so that we can then develop plans to prevent and treat people who are exposed to these chemicals. So this will be an ongoing process. But I think as we do more and more research, I'm sure down the road, and I will be the happiest person if in 15 years from now, if you have this interview and say, we really made a big impact. I think that's why our goal.
Well then, Dr. Bhagavatula Murthy, we're going to have you back on in 15 years
to
discuss.
No Let's say 10. Let's rush it.
10 Dr. Murthy is the program director and principal investigator of the Baylor College of Medicine Rice Superfund Research Program. Dr. Murthy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to both of you. Thank you so much.
Coming up, the Health Museum's Teen Medical Summit. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
It's coming up today at 3 o'clock.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston system, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Novotny and Company, offering commercial and residential property tax protests for 39 years. The deadline to file a protest is May 15th. Info and online filing at novotnycompany.com.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, reminding you that you now have 2 chances to catch Houston Matters each weekday. We're live at 9 a.m. Monday through Friday. We then replay the show at 9 p.m. Whether you're a morning person or a night owl, we got you covered here on News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Central Market, celebrating the tastes of New Orleans with specialties like boudin and andouille, crawfish, Gulf seafood, and more. Now through May 5th. CentralMarket.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Near Northwest Management District, celebrating 25 years at the intersection of innovation. More information at nnmd.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manouse and Celeste Díaz Schurman.
This summer, the Health Museum in Houston is offering high school students the opportunity to explore modern-day health and bioscience challenges with their annual Global Teen Medical Summit. Taking place over a single week in both June and July, the summit allows students aged 14 to 18 to experience behind-the-scenes tours of biomedical research labs, attend interactive workshops, and learn from renowned health care professionals, while also generating new ways of thinking about the most pressing healthcare issues of today. Sounds like a hefty order there, and very exciting. To tell us more about the Global Teen Medical Summit, we're joined once again by Becky Seabrook, the Senior Director of Guest Engagement at the Health Museum. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful things you have going on here and an awful lot to tackle, but all extremely important. Tell me about the program.
Yeah, this program was created back, it was probably about 2009, 2010, and it's really intended to get students thinking about how to tackle these challenges, kind of like you're talking about with the last speaker. They're big challenges, and sometimes the first step is understanding them and really defining the problems and then thinking outside the box. So this program is really about putting these students in conversation with some of the people, especially in the Texas Medical Center. There's some incredible people there that are doing this work, and also introducing them to just the incredible range of opportunities, career opportunities. A lot of students know about being a doctor or being a nurse, but not necessarily about some of the researchers and the policymakers and the entrepreneurs that are also behind the scenes.
If you have a question for Becky, feel free to join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
You know, Becky, you mentioned that this program was started back in 2009 and 2010.
Yep.
Here we are, 2026. Are the challenges the same?
I would say there's definitely a lot more politics in health and medicine nowadays. I think some of the topics that we hear about on any given day, you brought up vaccines in the last one. So I think sometimes some of the topics change, but I think ultimately there's still some really big challenges out there. Access to health and medicine has been an increasing problem. But at the same time, there's some incredible processes and inventions and things like that are coming that are helping us actually deal with some of these challenges. One of the ones that we'll be looking about is some of the incredible work that's happening in cancer research. And so, it's some things are the same, and I think some things are actually very different. So it's been fascinating to watch it over the years.
Am I wrong to assume that the work that you folks are doing at the Health Museum in this regard is more important today than it was in the past because of the way schools are shifting their focus on what students are discussing and teaching and learning, that this is becoming a much needed addendum to school?
I think it can be. Yeah, I think there's definitely an argument to be made that a lot of this is something that isn't talked about in schools. And I think when you have high school students that are trying to figure out what's coming next in terms of technical programs or college or what they want to do, and then you look at the expense of those programs and the investment, I think it's a really awesome opportunity for these students to be exposed to some of these possibilities and some of these opportunities so that they know about them as they're trying to make some of their decisions.
Sure. And what does a typical student look like that goes to this program?
So it's open to high school students. We focus on high school students. And I would say oftentimes it really appeals to students that may think they want to be a doctor, think they might want to go into medicine. But oftentimes we talk to them, especially at the end of the week, and they come out with a really great appreciation for just how much broader the field is than they anticipated. But yeah, I would say it definitely appeals to students that already have at least some interest, though they may not have had a lot of exposure to some of these different careers.
Yeah. Take me back. What made the Health Museum decide this is something we should be initiating in our community?
I think one of the things that has been amazing about the Health Museum is we have an opportunity to work with so many different organizations, other community organizations, different hospitals, different research centers. And I think having an opportunity to bring students in where they're having just have this week to be exposed to all of that, I think has been something that the museum's done really well, really engaging with our partners and bringing students into that conversation. But I think also in addition to just kind of meeting people what they are and all different health topics, we've sort of always informally done this career exploration with students. They'll come to the museum, they'll be like, I never heard of this before. And next thing they know, they're telling their parents they want to be a pediatric pulmonologist or they want to, work in we actually had a young elementary school student do that to his mom, and she thought it was pretty funny. So I think that's just something that we've always done just by virtue of bringing in all of these, different people from the med center, from public health.
You set us up perfectly to take a step back out of the Teen Summit and to actually talk about the Health Museum in general for folks who aren't familiar with it. I know it. I've been there. I've done stuff with you folks, and I love the Health Museum. Some people don't know it exists. Give the sell on the museum to begin
with. The museum, we're not as well known as some of the bigger ones, but I'd say we're just as important, if not more so.
Yes.
But it's really about inspiring wonder and curiosity around health, medical science, and just the human bodies, really looking at the human experience. We're born in these bodies. We've got this, however many years we've got. We have some similarities with each other, some difference, and it's just really about navigating that experience in our bodies. So we have a number of different exhibits. Right now we have the Journey to End Cancer, From Cause to Cure, which is a really amazing look at all the different developments that have happened in cancer research, which touches so many of us, unfortunately. But we have that. We have one that's going to be about sound, how sound impacts us. That's going to be coming in later this fall. So we're always looking at all different topics that relate to human health and the human experience in these bodies.
And I just want to stress, too, we're talking about the Teen Summit that's coming this summer, but that this is an all-ages museum. This isn't like an offshoot of a children's museum style thing. Anyone can learn from what you folks put up.
Absolutely. I would actually say we do best with students in mid to upper elementary and up. So we've got an amazing children's museum next door. They do a really good job with the tinies. But
tinies.
With
like
the tinies. So I would say, grades 3, 4, and up, we see a lot of middle school, high school students, and we see a lot of adults. So I think it's kind of fun. I think it's its own challenge, is trying to figure out how to work with a really broad range of ages, because people are thinking about different things at different times. But it's amazing.
So take me back to the summit and I'm curious how you construct a day so that it's not overwhelming, but gets maximum impact with the time you have with the kids, because there's a lot.
It's definitely busy.
Yeah.
It's a combination of some conversations. So some of these conversations with the experts, some behind the scenes tours, some hands-on stuff. So they'll be doing an autopsy on a fetal pig with a medical examiner.
I didn't do good with that in high school. Doing the fetal pig was not one of my favorites.
But the medical examiners are pretty fascinating people to talk to.
Yeah.
So that they'll actually become certified in CPR while they're with us. We've got social activities built in, lots of meals and snacks built in. So we know it's a really busy week, but we try to kind of mix it up so that they're having a great time while they're learning.
And so I was curious how maybe if a parent's hearing this, or a grandparent or caregiver is thinking, I think my child or young teen would be interested in this. Where can they get information on this? Is there an application process? What does that look like?
Yeah, so they can get information about the museum and about this conference if they go to our website, so thehealthmuseum.org. Under the programs section, there is an area that talks all about the summit. It talks about the dates, the cost, the scholarship application for those that are looking for either a need-based or merit-based scholarship. And I would encourage them to look, because at the end of the month, the scholarship applications close. But that information is on there. There's information for parents or grandparents that may have concerns if they have a student with special needs, how we address that. Right. So yes, I would definitely recommend going to the website as a first step. And then if they had any follow-up questions, our staff is happy to talk with them.
Give the website again.
Thehealthmuseum.org.
See, that's an easy one to remember. Over the years, how has this program grown, and where would you like to see it go?
The thing that I've seen over the years, I just love when you get students coming in and not only engaging more with the content and, being able to see themselves in some roles that maybe they hadn't before, but also the friendships they develop with each other, which I think is a big piece of it. Finding others, other students, other like-minded students that may have similar interests. So that's always exciting that we've got that. I think the quality of the people, just by virtue of being in Houston and having this medical center, I think has always been a strength. One of the things that we do is we do design challenges, and we're really trying to empower the students to picture themselves actively learning to, actively solving these challenges. One of the things they'll be doing this year is the students will have an opportunity to design a program that actually gets featured in the museum. So we're really, I would say more and more, we've been looking for ways to actively engage the students in the process, and then what they create during this process actually comes to life, like in the museum.
Fascinating. Becky Seabrook is the Senior Director of Guest Engagement at the Health Museum. Becky, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
And the Global Teen Medical Summit will take place from June 14th through the 19th and July 19th through the 24th. So there's going to be a lot. Thank you.
Something else we were looking at a little earlier today in the show, we were talking about the president and social media and what's going on with James Comey. So we put a poll up, as we often tell you. It's right there on our YouTube page. Today's poll was, Trump frequently uses social media. Do you think U.S. presidents should actively use social media? Interesting question. And our winning with 46% of the votes were no, stay off social media. 31% came in with rarely for official statements only. So you're already talking about 77% of respondents think that the president should stay away from social media. 23% say yes, but only for major updates. And 0% of our listeners who took this poll said yes, every day for communication.
Okay, hear me out.
I'm listening.
Might be an unpopular opinion. I think the president should be able to use social media because I do think that younger generations go there for communication and to hear what is happening and get there, whether we agree with it or not. However, the way and the amount, like major official things, should not be on social media.
I, speaking on behalf of the older generation, feel that the press secretary for the president should put the official statements out on the president's site and say issues and concerns and thoughts that the president is thinking about of the day. Let the president run the country. He's very busy. I mean, it takes time to keep a good, strong social media presence.
But I would say, that's what President Biden did. He did not really use social media. He went back to a very, traditional format. And what'd that get him? All right.
On that note, what does it get you? The end of our show.
We want to thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. That's it. We've run out of time, but we'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. We're going to discuss a new study on Fort Bend County's air quality. This is News 88.7. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Visit Galveston, presenting the first Bayfront Blues and Fine Art Festival, featuring blues musicians and fine